Hi BookTube, it's Amy. I just finished reading The Imaginary Mistress by Honoré de Balzac, and this is the first Balzac short work I've read that pulled at my heartstrings and almost had me in those sort of happy tears you get when you read something that's really romantic in a classic sense of romance. So this is a story, not all that long. Let's see, page 126 to page 181 in my edition here. So just somewhere around 50 pages long here. Short story about 50 pages long. But this is the story of Clementine, who marries Adam, known here as Count Adam Meticulous Laginsky, and Balzac is a little bit politically incorrect here in noting that although many of the character names here are Polish names, rather than using the Polish spellings, he's decided just to write them out as they sound to him from a French perspective. He says, "I allow myself to spell the names as they are pronounced to spare the reader the sight of the fortifications of consonants by which, in the Slav languages, the vowels are protected, no doubt to secure them against loss, seeing how few they are." So he throws a bit of shade at Polish names and also significant shade at Polish culture in some ways throughout the story, making generalizations about what it means to be a Polish man and comparing Polish women to Parisian women, noting that Parisian women are somehow a little bit more delicate than Polish women. He seems to assert that Polish men are ruled by the women in their lives, and although Parisian women are somewhat more delicate, they're also more assertive, and therefore a Polish husband who marries a Parisian woman is going to certainly be ruled by his wife. But that bit aside, it really is a great classic romantic story. So we have Count Adam, who has fled Poland because of conflict with Russia, and he finds himself living in Paris, where he meets the heiress Clementine. And Clementine marries him at a young age. I believe she's around the age of 20 or 21 when they marry. Count Adam first glimpsed her at the opera, and Count Adam is very, very close with a man by the name of Count Paz, and Count Paz prefers to go by Captain Paz because although he's from another noble Polish family, he's from a branch of the family that really didn't have all that much money, but Count Adam and Count Paz ended up bonding while fighting in war together. And Count Adam saved Paz's life not once, but twice, and so Paz in some ways feels indebted to him. Paz is a little bit older, not by much. Paz is only in his 30s, but Paz ends up with something of a fatherly feeling towards Count Adam, and takes it upon himself to manage Count Adam's financial affairs. And this is all fine and good until the day Adam takes him to the opera and shows him across the room Clementine, who he intends to marry, and Paz immediately falls desperately in love with Clementine. And respecting that Adam intends to marry her, he of course makes no move of his own and endeavors to continue serving the interests of his friend by looking after Adam's affairs. And he does so quite well for the first 2 years or so of Adam and Clementine's marriage. They do the traditional honeymoon tour, spending time away from the home, and Paz does his best to stay out of sight. Of course, eventually Clementine becomes quite interested in who this Paz person is, who is constantly managing their affairs and constantly being referred to by her husband and by the servants. And she's a little bit bewildered as to why Paz, as a count of somewhat equal status, at least in terms of title, although not money, in terms of equal status in terms of title, why Paz isn't dining with them as a friend. And so Paz comes in from the stables where he's been looking after a horse and explains that he prefers it that way. He prefers to be referred to as the captain. He prefers to stay out of sight, and he seems to be quite a boring man with very little to say. And Clementine finds him very odd, but all the same wants him to dine with them. She seems a little bit taken with how he looks physically. We have a scene where he is described as being more physically attractive than her husband Adam. And it's hinted at that if Paz spends enough time around the Countess, around Clementine, he probably has a good chance of engaging in an affair with her. But Paz, being desperately in love with Clementine, but also very much in love with his friend Adam and wanting the best for the young couple, endeavors to make himself dishonorable in Clementine's eyes so that she won't fall in love with him and she won't ruin the relationship that she has with Adam. There's one particular scene where Paz realizes that Clementine is looking at him while they're alone in a room together with some expectation and making some flirtatious hints that perhaps she is looking for some sort of hint or some declaration of love or some sort of flirtatious behavior on his part. And he decides that he must put a stop to this, despite how much it pains him to have her think badly of him. And so he concocts this plan, this imaginary mistress, as the title of the story says, this imaginary mistress to make Clementine despise him. And it gets to the point where Clementine tries to convince her husband to throw Paz out of the house, but of course her husband is hiding things of his own, and Paz is there in the background throughout the entire story, looking after things, making sure they're financially sound, and making sure that everything is to her liking and that she is safe and well looked after, in the most respectful manner possible. And at the end of the story, just when you think that Paz is gone, you discover that he isn't, and he is still looking after things from afar. And it was just this wonderful, lovely story. And I feel like every time I talk about another Honoré de Balzac story here, I say that it was better than the last. But this time I really do mean it. It's better than the last. It seems like the more I read, the better they get, especially as I progress further into the chronological order of Balzac's stories. His writing does seem to have gotten better over the span of his career, as you would expect. So that is The Imaginary Mistress by Honoré de Balzac. And I will note that my set of Balzac is the Ellen Marriage and Clara Bell translation, which I believe was the first complete English translation of Balzac's works. And there is a note here that says that Balzac dedicated this particular story to the Comtesse Clara Maffei. And so, if you're looking for any place to start with Balzac, This might be a good place to start. It really gives you a flavor. We have a big lead up into the main story. We have Balzac's wonderful descriptions, his wonderful setting of the scene. And yeah, it's just a great short story here.